Morning, everyone. Welcome to the first ever Droidcon in Lisbon. Thanks for being here. On a Monday morning at 9 o'clock, it's always like herding chickens or cats to get everyone in the same room right away. So we're expecting there's the rest, everyone to trickle in. If you have missed it, here down on the lower left is the SSID and the password. So maybe take a really quick photo of that or write it down. But it's on every slide, so don't worry. If you miss it when I go one ahead, you're not going to miss it. So look, I hope you enjoyed the video. There's just a couple of quick things I wanted to highlight out of that. One, for us, it's every time is a milestone. So we're 5 continents, 25 cities. We're really, really excited to be here in Lisbon now, working with this fabulous community, with people like Fabio Pino and Felipe Rosso, who really have done a fabulous job putting this together. So what does that mean, though, for you? I think what it means is as we go into each of these communities across the world, there's opportunities to share what experiences you have had as developers. Everyone's got unique experiences. Everyone has a unique viewpoint. And it's something that we're just hoping that you will also take up that mantle, share what you know with the community worldwide. So there's lots of opportunities to speak and participate in Droidcons worldwide. Another thing you just saw I wanted to highlight is a project that's been sort of near and dear to my heart right now, which is building a global community platform where we're trying to curate content, create value for the community, centralize all of the great content, all the videos that are generated, that the fabulous speakers who come and speak at every Droidcon produce, have it searchable, have it in one place. And there's a lot of other features and things we'll layer on over time, but we think it's going to be really cool to have sort of a virtual home for Droidcon. And we hope you'll check it out because that's where you'll find all the videos as well here from Droidcon Lisbon. As I talked just briefly a little bit about, with having 25 Droidcons across the world on 5 continents, lots of opportunities to share what you know. One of the other things that we've done this year is partnered with Pro Android Dev. The guys that run this, Sergey Tsuk and Andy Dyer and Antonio Gutierrez, all those guys, and Simon Patrick, fantastic editors that really curate the best of what's going on out there in Android. So I have 2 invitations for you today is when you think about all of the Droidcons worldwide, think about the experiences and the things that you know as a developer that are unique. Submit to speak at various Droidcons, get involved in producing something in your own communities. The other thing is share what you know on Pro Android Dev. Submit an article, submit a blog there, because we'd love to have what you're doing be shared with the community. That's my very, very short pitch this morning. Really excited to be here. I want to have you give Fabio Pino a warm welcome. He's our Droidcon organizer and put this all together.
Thank you, guys. Thank Greg. First of all, let me thank you guys for being here. It's a real pleasure to have you all in here. And I have to thank you because you trusted us for the first ever Droidcon in Lisbon. Thank you, guys. It's mostly because of you that we have this event happening here today. And I really couldn't be more thankful to you and to all the speakers that made all this way to be here. So I have just 2 quick notes for you. First of all, this is the only session that will happen in this room. The other sessions will happen in 2 rooms in the external side of this one, track 1 and track 2. If you have any trouble find it, please let me know or any member of the staff and we'll help you. And second, the lunch will not be served in this building. We will have to move to a different building. So at lunchtime, if you have any trouble finding that place, ask us. We will just have to leave the building from downstairs and head left, and we will have posters indicating the way. But if you have any trouble, let us know. So thank you all again. Get us a big round of applause for Antonio, and enjoy these 2 days. Thank you.
It would be better, yeah.
Just ask if this works for the video recording, and I will do a thumbs up or thumbs down. If I do a thumbs down, use this one, okay? Okay. Just connect it. Okay, it's on.
Hello. Okay. Okay, so I want to start with a question this day. How many of you feel that there's not enough time in your day-to-day to learn about everything that appears in the Android world, all the new libraries, all the new features of Android, all the features of the framework? How many of you feel like this? And you get a little frustrated because even it doesn't matter the amount of time that you spend trying to learn everything that is released, that you never are able to cope up with this. I see this a lot of times in my day-to-day. And for instance, last Friday, I woke up with this tweet from Ian Lake from Google. Many of you may know about him, saying that they had released 11 updates of their libraries in Jetpack. So how us as developers can deal with that? How can we cope with all this information, all these new things that appear every day? And the same that we have in Jetpack, we have it, for instance, with a lot of different stuff. For instance, let's talk about Dagger versus Coin. You probably have heard a lot of struggles regarding using one or the other, or RX versus coroutines. If coroutines are going to make RX disappear, should we learn one? Should we learn the other? Are we wasting our time learning one of those? And even the new kit in the block that many of you may have heard about it, Flutter. The conspiracy that there is that Flutter is going to make Android disappear. Then should we all move to Flutter and forget about learning Android things and all Android stuff? So we as developers can feel a lot of frustration regarding this, because what I mentioned at the beginning, it's that we have no time in our day to learn about everything that is released in our day-to-day. And today, what I want you to think and to realize is the first thing, that you are not alone. You have seen that many of us raise our hand at the beginning of this talk, and how we can tackle all this. That it's normal that if you are trying to go on your own and learning new things, reading all the articles that are released in Pro Android Dev, for instance, which is an awesome reference, or in many other places around the network, it's normal that you feel like that. And what I want to show you here today is that you don't need to be so obsessed about learning everything, and how we can manage this anxiety of us as developers and related to all this. So the first concept that I wanted to mention is that we need to learn more efficiently, to focus on the things that really matter for us as software developers, and then obviously we have time learn about the little details that we can need in our day-to-day. So we are going through the talk today, through this keynote, taking a look at the things that I consider that are more important to have to understand for us as software developers, rather than learning all these new things that appear every day. And the most important part that I want here in this keynote is a change of mentality, or at least that I make you think a little about it, that when you get out from this room today, you have at least something to think about on how to focus your career and your next steps in this awesome career that is the software development. So for the ones who don't know me, I'm Antonio Leiva. Thanks so much for being here today at Droidcon Lisbon. It's an honor for me to be open in this event. And I'm the writer of the book Calling for Android Developers, and I also do online training and live training for companies. And I've been in the industry more or less like 11 years, and during all this time, I've seen some of the things that worked good and some of the things that work bad. I've worked with very bad code and with very good code, and I've seen the differences of working with one versus the other. So today, what I want to show you is my own experience. This is, of course, all personal opinion, so when we finish, we can talk about it during the networking time. And what I want here is to show you the keys that at least have helped me to tackle with all this frustration that can even lead to some imposter syndrome from time to time, where you feel that you are not prepared to do the kind of work that you are doing right now, or that you don't deserve this new opportunity that you are reading, this kind of things. So my goal here is to also show you what I think that are some of the key points to move from junior to senior, or to software developer to software engineer. And of course, there are many skills you may need to achieve to give that step, but at least some ones relating to coding and to the software that we develop. And to do that, first I want to show you the 3 types of developers that I've identified during my whole career, and in fact I've been in the 3 of them during all this time. And the first one would be the person that considers that working as a developer is just a job that pays the bills for them, and when they get home, they forget about everything that is related to coding. They don't try to improve on their homes, and probably they are not enjoying their work. We probably live in a bubble here when we all enjoy our work and are passionate about it, but the truth is that probably 90% of the population, and this is an invented number, but more or less, are not enjoying their work. They only see it as a way to pay their bills, and they hate going to work on Mondays. So this is not, in my opinion, is not a very good way to live your life, that you are wasting the third part of your life on your work, on a work that you don't enjoy. So at some point, you may discover an event like this, or a group in the area where you live, and start realizing that you can enjoy your work, and you can start giving more for what you are doing in your day-to-day, and go to the second level, which is, well, I didn't mention that in this first point, I was like my first year in my career, when of course I did my best during my work time, but I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. I went home and I didn't continue trying to become a better developer. In the second level, you can become the stressed developer, which is the developer that wants to learn everything, that reads all the articles, all the books, that watches all the new YouTube videos, all the videos of the conferences, and still you feel that you are not doing your best, that the more you learn, the more you realize that there are many things to learn yet, and that you are not being able to achieve everything with the 24 hours that you have. So this was my situation when I discovered the Android world, that I became so passionate about it that I started learning a lot, and I started even writing articles and doing my first conferences. In fact, my first one was in another Droidcon in Madrid 6 years ago. And this is really good on one hand, because now at least you are enjoying your profession, you are becoming passionate about what you do, so you probably wake up on mornings with a lot of energy, trying to do your best on your day. But on the other hand, it can be a very bad for your health and for your self-esteem because of what I mentioned. Our brain cannot be 24 hours thinking about these things. It needs to rest, to disconnect, and also because when we have reached to that situation, we cannot continue progressing on that side. I mean, you become so obsessed about learning all that and so stressed that in the end you don't believe on your own knowledge and you end up with this very well known imposter syndrome that we most of us probably know in our profession. At this point, you have two options. You can go to the first place where this got disconnected. You can go to the first type where you forget about learning and say, okay, I want a simpler life even if I don't enjoy my work so much. Or you can go to what I call the third type, that will be the software engineer. A software engineer, in my opinion, as I mentioned, it has to have many more skills, but one of the most important, in my opinion, is that they are more focused on quality code rather than on learning new libraries or learning new frameworks, etc. And this is really good because of some things that we'll see later, but in my opinion, it has the best of the two worlds. You don't need to be so obsessed about learning everything because if you think about it, software development hasn't evolved so much. We, of course, have improved the languages we use and the technologies we use, and also the way we work with each other, we work together, but the concepts of what quality code is haven't changed so much in these years. We need a code that is easy to read, easy to understand, easy to evolve if a new feature comes in, and that is easy to test. And all these things don't evolve so fast. So once you learn them, you are in a very well position as a software developer. And this is important also because when people ask me about should I learn Rx Java or should I learn coroutines, Dagger versus Coin, the question is probably can't be answered because if we don't have the foundation, the basics of why we need these tools, we are not able to answer the question whether we need Rx Java or coroutines or why we need a dependency injector if we don't know why we need to provide the dependencies or what the dependency inversion is, the inversion of control, what these tools are solving us in our day-to-day. So that's why I think that first we need to focus on learning how to develop good quality code, and then we can move on and start learning the libraries that will solve our problems in our specific projects. So you have to take one thing from today's talk. It will be that you can better focus on learning how to write quality code instead on focusing on learning new libraries and new framework features, etc. And this is first because of what I mentioned, that this doesn't change so much, and also makes you become a better developer. But second, because all this information is transferable. And what do I mean with this? That it's someday Android disappears because Flutter ends up eating Android, or because there's a new operating system that makes Android disappear. I don't see it in the recent future, but there's a lot of people that ask these kind of questions. If Android disappears, it doesn't matter so much because we have learned how to write good code, know how to write good code specifically applied only to Android development. So if we go tomorrow to iOS and start writing Swift code, things like solid principles, architectures, testing, all these concepts exist there too, and exist if you go to backend or you go to write a web application, whatever. So for us as developers, it frees us from this anxiety that the world is evolving so fast that we cannot keep up with it. And it's here I want to do an analogy to when we go to the gym and start learning new and start doing exercises randomly because, for instance, we want to become stronger and we want to see our arms stronger, so we start doing biceps exercises, but forget about triceps, or we don't want to strengthen our legs, so we don't do anything about that. And maybe we see another person on our side that looks like we want to look and start mimicking their exercises without thinking what is really important for us at our moment. So the best thing that can happen you in that situation is that you get injured, you get back home and forget about doing exercises because it can be worse in the long term. The same happens to software development. We want to run too fast. So for instance, we see that someone is using Dagger, let's say, or another dependency injector, and we want to start using it in our projects. But we still don't know anything about solid principle because who wants to learn about that? It's so boring. And we also don't know about architecture, so we don't find the need. When we apply it to our projects, nothing matches and nothing works because we are missing the real point that is behind these libraries. And in the end, we pick something from one article, from another, and end up in a situation where our code is some kind of Mr. Potato that magically works, but in the end, when you change one thing, everything breaks down and our code crashes and becomes really impossible to maintain. So getting back to the analogy of the gym, if we want to do things correctly, we probably would get a personal trainer that will tell us, well, you are going to do these exercises and I'm going to create a nutritional plan for you that maximizes your exercises so that you can become stronger in less time. So what I want to be here today is your personal trainer of software development. I know that you are many here, but I want to give you some clues on where you can go to start building up a good basis as a software developer. So there are two things that I consider that are important here, and I'm first saying them, and then I'll explain why I think they are important. The first one would be learning new languages, and in our case, as we are Android developers, if you don't know Kotlin yet, I really recommend you to start learning Kotlin. And the second would be focusing on writing good quality code. And why I think that learning new languages is a good idea, and especially for us Android developers, because when we are coming from a language like Java, which is a very old language, and especially the versions that we use on Android development, we are missing many of the features that modern languages have. So we are like partially missing part of the information that we need to know as software developers. Concepts like immutability or nullability, or that exist in most languages nowadays. Java doesn't have them, or have them so hidden that nobody uses them. Or things like properties that I was using them like 10 years ago when I was writing C#, but in Java we still need to write the setters and getters of all our fields. and data classes or shield classes, which are concepts that with other names but exist in other languages like Swift or Scala. Why do you think that when we say that Swift is so similar to Kotlin, that many people think that? It's because modern languages, and these two languages were born more or less in the same year, modern languages apply the same concepts to their base. So when we learn one modern language, it's very easy to move to another one. I'm sure that all of you could read Swift code even if you have never written, just by knowing Kotlin. And for instance, I wrote some Ruby code a few years ago, and it was really very easy to move because many of the concepts that I had learned from Kotlin were transferable to that language. But if we stick to old languages, we are missing all that. And when you learn a new language like Kotlin, even when you go back to writing Java code, which I had to do sadly when I learned Kotlin, all the new things that you have learned there are even applicable to the old languages. I started doing things very differently when I learned Kotlin. For instance, being very worried about nullability. I started using the not null and nullable annotations on Java, or the immutability that kind of exists in Java with the final reserved word. All those things gets into your head, and when you write in any other language, you become a better developer even without realizing. So apart from that, the point of functional programming that nowadays is so popular, and that in Java it's kind of missing. With a language that allows functional programming, and I'm not meaning pure functional programming, but things like having functions that can return functions, or that can receive functions as arguments, saving functions as variables. All this gives you a lot of power and a different way of solving the same problems. So that's why I think it's so important that we don't stick to an old language like Java, or that at least you learn a new modern language that gives you all those new concepts and ideas. And to do this, to help you with learning Kotlin, I was thinking about giving you some steps, as I'm going to do with the next one, but I thought about doing something a little bit different. So we are going to do a little contest during the whole event, which will have the following steps. Oh, you are missing the contest because. Okay, what I'm going to do is to raffle 10 copies of my digital edition of the book, and the only thing you need to do is to find me on Twitter. The handle is there, line_CL. Take a selfie with me during these 2 days during the event, and then upload it to Twitter and tag me so that I can know that you are participating. And by the end of the event, probably on Wednesday or Thursday, I'll recopilate all those and let you know which. I'll do the raffle and let you know who of you earned the book. So yeah, we have all the 2 days. So this is to encourage networking and that we talk each other rather than the books themselves. But also, I wanted to give you a way to continue learning Kotlin. And the second point would be about writing quality code. And here, what I'm showing you is a checklist of what I consider that would be the order to learn some of the main concepts of writing good quality code and ideas of software design. So the first thing I would focus on would be on clean code and solid principles. And why I think this is important? Regarding clean code, because we, in the end, spend much more time reading code than writing it, and it's very important that our code is easy to read and easy to maintain. And clean code is all about this, about deciding good names for our variables, for our methods, our classes, the size of those classes, and all this helps a lot in understanding what our code is doing. Uncle Bob always says that our code should be, we should be able to read our code as if it was a book, reading from the very beginning to the very end without having to interpret what is happening there. So this is all about this. And then the solid principles, which I don't recommend to getting obsessed with them because some of the solid principles are, you cannot apply the 5 of them at the same time to the same code, but I do think that it's very useful to have all those concepts in our heads when we are writing code so that we can follow them when they make sense and make our code much easier to maintain. And because they are the basis of the rest of the things we are mentioning here. The second one would be the presentation patterns. Some of them call them architectural patterns, but in my opinion, it's not a very accurate naming because they only model the presentation layer, which would be the ones that allow us to remove all the logic from the views of our projects. And our activities just, or fragments just have to do things related to the UI and nothing related to the logic, the application logic of our apps. There are two which are the most popular, MVP and MVVM. Here I'm not going to get into which one is better or not. I recommend to have an idea of both, and once you learn one of them, it's very easy to move to the rest of different options. The third one would be architectures, and in particular, I would focus on clean architecture, which is the most popular in Android development. And again, once you learn how an architecture works, the rest are the same. In the end, the idea is that we can encapsulate parts of our code so that they are independent of other parts of our code, so that the inner layers that don't need to know anything about the outer ones. And this is one of the things that also can discharge us from the need to know about everything, because with these architectures, we can abstract the libraries to the most external layer. So if we, for some reason, don't know all the possible libraries that exist, and one day we realize that there's one that fits better with our needs, we have it abstracted in our outer layer, it's very easy to change and to start using another one. So here we can relieve this pain of having to take the best decision when we are choosing one library, because we can easily change it in the future. And when we know about architectures, then I think it's the moment to get into dependency injection or dependency provisioning if we want to be more strict. And again, what I mentioned at the beginning, if we start with Dagger without having understood all the rest, it's really difficult that we understand how to use the library. The library by itself is difficult to configure, but even if we have to learn how to use the library and also all the concepts that are behind this library, then it's impossible to manage. And that's why it's usually so difficult to understand how to use it. And at this point, you could use some of the options. Nowadays, Dagger and Coin are probably the most popular in Android development. And finally, that's when I would go for testing. Testing is another thing that is usually very complex for developers, and again, the reason is because we usually start with it too soon when we are learning about all these things. If we try to apply testing to a base code that is not prepared to do it, then we have to learn many more things, like dealing with legacy code in testing, which is one of the most complex things to do in testing, and apart from learning all about JUnit, about Mockito probably. So if you have a good base code where you can test, it's much easier to start with testing. And here I recommend to start first with unit testing, and then going once we have this understood, going for integration or UI testing. There are many kinds of tests. These are only 3 of the many that exist, but it's a very good start. By knowing these three, you will know more than the 90% of the developers probably. And another number that I invented. And just to sum up, with all this, in the end, what I'm trying to do is to reduce the need to know everything so that you can fight better the imposter syndrome. Because I see more and more that this is like something that is affecting a lot of developers, that they are quite worried about not applying, for instance, to new positions because they feel that they don't have the knowledge that they need to get it, or even standing out in their own company because of the same. And here, what I want to do is to break this imposter syndrome with a little experiment. And I don't know if there are many of you here, but if there are speakers that are doing other talks these days, if you can come here with me to do the experiment. Are there any? Okay. It's going to be easy, don't worry. Okay. Well, I'm sure there are more but they are hidden in the... Okay. I see more people. Good, so here what I'm going to do is to show a set of things that I don't know so that you realize that even being here in the scenario or the people that are around you, you probably know some things that we don't know, and the other way around. There will be some things that you know that the others don't, and it's not a problem. We can still become great developers without knowing everything that it's in our industry. So I'm showing here the list of things, and we just raise our hand if we don't know. I don't know any of those, so it's easy for me, but let's see the rest. For instance, the World Manager, this library that is in the Jetpack set of libraries. I know that it exists, but I haven't used it, and I don't know how to apply it to my project. The Page Adapter, that is this library that uses the page in the recycler view. What's more, RxJava. This is probably the most controversial. I have never used it on a real project, so I've read many things about it, but I wouldn't be able to apply it without spending maybe 1 week or two on it. Firebase. I've done some push notifications, but I don't know anything about real-time databases or all these new things that are adding. So, but I don't mind. It doesn't matter to me because I know that this is the most external part of my application, and if one day I need it, I just need to read 1 or 2 hours the documentation and apply it. So it's not that important that we don't know that things. Or MVI, this new presentation pattern that is becoming quite popular in Android development. Flutter, that we mentioned before. Of course, I would love to have time to learn it, but I don't have it, and I haven't started with it yet, and it's okay. We are not dying for not knowing Flutter until we need it. And dynamic feature and instant apps, these two things that Google is pushing a lot, but that in the end, until you don't need it, I don't think it matters much if you don't learn it. So yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Again, what I want you is to enjoy this amazing career that is Android development, and that you don't get so worried about knowing anything. That these events are great to have an idea of the things that are happening, and once you need it in your projects, you can go back to that video or to that article and to really understand how it works, and your life will probably be much happier and less stressful. Thank you so much, and enjoy the event.